Yo, what's up? What's going on? What's good? That's right. The Boxing Source checking in here with this podcast, Sunday, July 23rd, 2023. And this is the Spence versus Crawford special preview show. I am here with the Boxing Academic live here to preview what's going on July 29th at the T-Mobile Arena. That's right. The undisputed welterweight championships on the line. Errol Spence Jr. versus Terence Crawford. Errol Spence Jr. coming in 28-0 with 22 wins by way of knockout, and Terence Crawford coming in 39-0 with 30 wins by way of knockout. Spence having the IBF, WBA, and WBC welterweight championships, with Crawford with the WBO welterweight championship going in there in Las Vegas. And this is, the fight that, fight fans have been waiting for. This is the one that, they're saying, we could have this, 3 years ago, 2 years ago. You're talking about, this person's ducking, that person's ducking. That's all, that's all going to be erased come July 29th. People will finally be able to see this fight, this dream fight of sorts, the fight, in the glamour division of boxing, the biggest bout since Mayweather-Pacquiao in May of 2015. That was, over 8 years ago. And this is, the first four-belt undisputed championship bout here for the welterweight division. Zab Judah was the last undisputed champion when there was three major belts before the WBO was considered a major organization here in boxing. But to, go through the tail of the tape and, things to watch out for here, I have my guy here, of course, checking in from Atlanta. The Boxing Academic is here in the building. What's going on, man?
What's going on, Jr.? Man, this is the show where we preview, and like everybody's saying, it's a 50-50 fight. But I'm sure we have our picks or whatever.
Yep, people have their picks on, who they feel like is going to, be favored in this particular bout. And, I'm going to just go through the tail of the tape here, here real quick. First, going through Errol Spence Jr., like I said, 28-0, 22 wins by way of knockout from DeSoto, Texas. Yeah, he's pretty much from the Dallas area. He don't really claim New York like that. But he's there at 33 years old, 5'9.5" with a 72-inch reach. Of course, his last few bouts that he's had there in the welterweight division, of course, 2019, 2 wins with Mike Winner, then undefeated Mikey Garcia, then being able to unify the IBF WBC welterweight championships against Sean Porter in September of 2019, and then in 2020, after his car accident, he was able to defeat Danny Garcia by unanimous decision. And then in 2022, he was able to defeat Yordenis Ugas by 10th round TKO. And on the flip side, you got Terence Crawford, of course, a multi-division world champion, former undisputed super lightweight champion, going from 140 pounds in 2017, then moving up in 2018 to defeat Jeff Horn for the WBO welterweight championship, and then has defended his titles against Jose Benavidez Jr., Amir Khan, Agidizis Kavaliauskas, Kell Brook, Sean Porter, and David Avanjan before this bout against Errol Spence Jr. And he goes in at 5'8" with a reach of 74 inches. So he's, kind of like one of those, anomalies there in the welterweight division, almost kind of like a Floyd Mayweather when it comes to those dimensions. But he has a different type of fighting style, in reference to how he goes out against his opponents. It's more of like a, he goes from starting at a southpaw, switches to orthodox and that type of thing in order to have different looks on his opponents and seeing if his opponent is able to adjust. But ever since he has entered the welterweight division, he has stopped every single opponent that he's had up to this point. While Errol Spence Jr., of course, he scored the TKO victory over Yordenis Ugas last April, and has not been in the ring since. But, like people have said, he has been waiting for this particular bout against Terence Crawford. He didn't want any warm-ups. He didn't want any tune-ups. He didn't want any other opponent. He just wanted Terence Crawford, and he felt like he could stay out or, pretty much stay out of the ring until he got this particular fight. So those, pretty much the fights that these fighters have had in the welterweight division recently, or at least since 2017 or so. So, yes, they do have two common opponents, Kell Brook and Sean Porter, with, of course, Errol Spence Jr. Defeating Kell Brook for the IBF welterweight championship in 2017, and as mentioned earlier, was able to unify with the WBC welterweight championship with this win over Sean Porter. And, with Terence Crawford, he, was able to defeat Kell Brook in 2020 and then face Sean Porter in his next bout in 2021, where he was able to stop both of those guys there in what was it? The first one with Kell Brook in 4 rounds, and with Sean Porter, the towel was thrown in at the 10th round. So you definitely have, like I said, two great fighters here coming into this particular bout with two, various styles, at least, with what, fight fans have been used to seeing there. So, that's what we got here on the initial tail of the tape. And wanted to, have what Boxing Academic is going to say here first, and then I'm going to add in another person that will join in on the conversation between this Spence and Crawford. So, Boxing Academic, what do you got with these two fighters?
So I'll try to make it quick. So I went back, and for the sake of this fight, I went back and looked at probably 6 fights, 3 apiece. And so I looked at the Crawford Porter, Spence Porter, Crawford, the UK guy, Brook, and Spence Brook. And I looked at Crawford, Kavaliauskas, and obviously you got to look at Spence Ugas. And so I went to look at, I wasn't looking at the score, but I looked at it for tendencies to see what each fighter would probably use against, their respective opponent in this upcoming fight. And so a couple things that I noticed in the Crawford Porter fight, I see why everybody is very high on Bud, in that Bud can punch from a lot of positions. He has a tendency to do sort of like his little hop step backwards and do the little crouch, and then he lands counters from different positions. And in that Porter fight, he was very active, and he was like touching Porter kind of throughout the whole fight and barely missing his chin. He controlled the distance when he did sort of the hand fighting against Porter as well. And so when Porter won rounds, he won the rounds off of activity. And so one thing I will say, the difference between Porter Crawford and Porter Spence is that the mentality in the Bud fight, what Porter was one where he was showing a bit too much sportsmanship. He was showing too much courtesy to Bud. He would get rough with Bud, and then after he get rough, he would pat Bud on the back and stuff to be like, hey, we all good and stuff like that. Versus Spence, he wasn't showing Spence no kind of courtesy. If I look at the Spence Porter fight, quite naturally, Spence was out muscling Porter in the beginning of that fight, and whenever they clinch, Spence kind of ended the clinch with the punch. And so they were fighting sort of end fight. It was a very wild sort of fight. It was like I wouldn't call it a no holds barred, but it was just so much going on. And both guys was just all over the place, sort of, with just too much reactiveness. And so the one thing I did notice is that Spence's defensive positions, he only have a few defensive positions that leave him open for sort of shots. And so like he sort of gets in this like no man's land, and that'll be something that I probably mention a little bit later. But I noticed some positions to where it probably won't bode well for him in the Bud fight. But Porter was not showing courtesy to Spence. Spence Brook, I'd say that Brook is obviously a front runner, but he was a tough competitor in both of those fights, and he gave Spence trouble with distance. But you know, Spence, he didn't put as much pressure on Brook as he eventually started to do, and you can see sort of Spence's growth from when he fought Brook until later fights in his maturity. And then Crawford Brook, you know, Brook gave Crawford fits early, and so I would even dare say he was probably winning the fight at the time he got knocked out. And so Crawford had a long jab, and then he sort of gave Brook trouble with the orthodox stand. And so when he got a different vantage point and went to the southpaw, he was able to land his counter shots a bit more easier. And then when Crawford did his hand fighting, he sort of stopped Kell Brook in his tracks. And so observations from Crawford Mean Machine is that Crawford started really fast in that fight. Like he started being more aggressive than what you would normally notice him doing. And so he paid for missing his wide, like looping hooks. But, you know, you would always see Bud do the jump back and do the looping hooks. But then Kavaliauskas would hit him with straight shots. And then he would sometimes pay for throwing those wide sort of shots. And then when Bud stopped jabbing, but I have a note, but I don't know what that says. And so Spence Ugas, obviously Ugas is a warrior, but Spence is susceptible to uppercuts. He was susceptible to uppercuts throughout that fight a lot. And he had moments where he was in this sort of no man's land with Ugas as well. And so he took a more offensive posture in that fight, and he started his attack with body shots. But even with that, Spence was hurt to the body as well. So with all that being said, if I consider the matchup, I think Bud will look to keep the fight on the mid range to the outside range distance, to where he can see shots coming, and then he can counter Spence with quick return fire shots. I think Spence will look to keep the fight in Bud's chest, where he will, like, you know, let off body shots, hooks, uppercuts, and sort of like fight, you know, sort of fight Bud on his chest. I don't think Bud's jab is strong enough to contest Spence's jab. Now, the only thing I will say, the thing that'll make the fight interesting, unless Bud challenges Spence's jab with sort of the end fighting or a similar jab, he gonna have a long day. And obviously he gonna try to do the jump back and then throw the little wide hook as well. I think if you watch, as Tim Bradley said, if you watch fights of Spence, you're gonna think he win. If you watch fights of Bud, you're gonna think that he win. But this fight is so intriguing to me because I still think that Bud is gonna get, I think that Spence will get a lead off of his activity, but Spence is gonna leave himself open at times when he's sort of in that no man's land, to where Bud will have opportunities to catch him. And Bud probably very likely gonna hurt him and sort of even up the fight. And that's what's gonna make it interesting. I don't know if it's gonna be a knockout, but I think Spence gonna win the fight. He gonna win off of his lead, and then Bud probably gonna hurt him at some point when Spence is in that no man's land. So I'll keep it there because I know other people need to talk.
All right, gotcha. I mean, that's a extensive preview there. Given those, like you said, those examples of the fights that you were able to look at and see the tendencies of each fighter from those fights. Before I go with the punch sets on some of those fights, I wanted to add in another person that has his take on what's going to be going down on July 29th. Has been a previous guest here on the show, and that's Zoe in the building. What's happening, Zoe?
What's up, people? What's up?
What's good, Zoe, man? So, give us your take on what you see from both Spence and Crawford before going into this fight on July 29th.
I so the way I see this fight going is a chess match. The first 5 rounds going to be a chess match. You might get a couple boos. You feel me? But I think Terence Crawford is gonna fight off the back foot. He's gonna use the ring. He's gonna use every inch of the ring, side to side movement, in and out. You feel me? He's gonna fight similar to how he fought Victor Postal. Spence is going to try to press behind his jab. He's going to try to press, early on. Bud is while Bud's downloading information, his defense is very leaky. So Spence is going to get some jabs off. He's going to hit. And it's going to be whether Bud's disciplined enough to stick to the game plan while he's getting hit. But I think around round 5, round 6, he's going to take away Spence's jab. And he's going to start to take over. The money punches is going to be the uppercut in the lead right hand from the orthodox stance. You feel me? That's going to be his money punches in that fight. And I think he's going to close it out. He's going to get a 115, 113 victory, or he might just land a big counter and stop him late.
So, that was really quick, really quick there. Going off of, what you said is, a couple of key punches there from Terence Crawford. He said it was like the uppercut in the lead right hand, which, I kind of feel like is, especially the last one, is interesting because you say it's going to come from the orthodox stance, while, Errol Spence is, basically a southpaw. And the thing with Errol Spence is he really keeps he usually has a high guard on the defensive stance, but he usually keeps his strong hand up with the left hand. So, yeah. With Terence Crawford, if he is going to, try to implement that lead right hand, how is he going to be able to, try to get through that high guard of Errol Spence? Is he going to try to, set it up with feints, or is he, going to try to, switch it up with that orthodox stance and, try to lead in with the left jab, then try to come in with the right hand or something like that?
It's all going to be down to feints. It's all going to be down to feints and just feinting them out of position to get it there.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think it's going to be all that, but Spence leaves moments where, like I said, he be in no man's land, to where it's when he throw his left hand and then he's coming back across the line. It's going to be some interesting moments, and Zoe might be right in that he might get hit with a straight right hand, because Spence had moments where his hands don't be up, and it's right for the taking. He gonna get a bunch of punches off, but it's right for the taking to hit him though.
And then another thing I think that people are overlooking in this fight is, I do feel Spence is the better inside fighter. I do feel that. That's the consensus. I do feel that way. But I think what's going to surprise people is Bud's the stronger guy here. Bud's physically the stronger guy here, dog. You feel just physically strong. People are gonna be surprised by how if Spence start to get some work and he start to flow inside, people's gonna be shocked to see how easily Bud's able to just tie it up and just halt the action and just restart the action again. People's gonna be a lot of surprised by that.
That don't mean he's strong just because he can tie him up.
Nah, he's strong, bro. He's strong, bro. He's a strong ass motherfucker, man. He's a strong, he's ridiculously strong, bro. You must not have been doing your homework, bro.
No. It's not really that, Zoe. Is that I think there's some people that may have been surprised to see what Crawford was able to do in the Porter fight, because there were a couple of times when there was tie-ups in that particular.
Fuck the Porter fight.
But
you saw when he deadlift 400 pounds off
but that's the thing. They don't know about Crawford deadlifting 400 pounds like that. That's something I already knew about. I knew about that at least a few years ago from what other people have told me, that have been real close to Crawford or something like that. So there are people that are around that camp or have been around that camp that know that, but they don't necessarily see that in the ring. And that when they had that, of course, with the Porter fight, with how Porter's style is, to where he pretty much what he usually does is he'll jab, but he comes forward with the jab and he smothers his follow-up hand. So what ends up happening is when he throws the jab, he'll come in and it'll pretty much tie up his opponent a lot. And so what happened early in that fight, in the Crawford fight, was you kind of seen a couple of instances where it was like a tie-up, but then when you seen, Crawford just, come from his lower body up and be able to, lift Porter off his feet, then people saw, like, the general public saw, how Crawford is as far as like his strength, especially from his lower body. But outside of that, like, if people haven't like been aware of that, then they should be able to see that before this particular fight, because as the term goes, country strong, that's what Crawford is. He's country strong like that. So
wasn't he in his high school years, he was ranked number 3 in wrestling.
Yeah, wrestling. Yep. So that's where that background goes on that.
So you said tie up though, just because he tied him up. Now, if you saying if he throwing his ass around, yeah, that shows strength. But just tying him up, that's more technique.
By tying up, I mean, like, look at a guy like Devin Haney, right? There's a couple instances. Devin Haney's a master at the clinch, but he's also a guy that there's guys who could jockey for position and get punches off on him while he's clinching. You feel me? But there's other people who's really, really good at the clinch. You got the Floyd Mayweathers where they got you, the Muhammad Ali where they clinched you. You wasn't getting no hits off. You wasn't sneaking no little hits off. You feel me? They got that type of ability. You feel me? Well, I mean, when he ties up Spence, I'm talking about all actions gonna halt. You feel me? The referee's gonna have to say,
I get what you're saying.
That's what I mean.
So that is strength. I get what you're saying.
But there's that. But also, if there's, like I said, with the Porter example, right? If you attempt to clinch him, he'll do what he needs to do in order to break off of that clinch, whether it's pushing off of that clinch or trying to just weave or swing off of his opponent there. So that's the thing that we're going to be looking out for with Terence Crawford, especially in close quarters. But the thing about Errol Spence is he really, he does have that where he tries to tie up, one hand and then work with the other hand, or just try to, wrestle around and get the body work in first. So we got to see how Terence Crawford is able to go off of that. But want to get in another person to jump in on this conversation here. That's Brother Terrell here with the promo of their Spence Jr. versus Crawford, man. So Terrell, give us your take on what's going to go down on July 29th.
Yeah, just real quick. Just first of all, maximum respect to everyone on the show. Mike, what's up? And mother do this on it too. But just looking at the last 2 episodes of the Showtime coverage and things like that. For one, it's a blessing that we got both these fighters in their prime. No substantial injury, something like that, going into the fight, things like that. Just looking at the videos of Spencer recently, public workouts. Dude's the top form mentally, physically, and I'm sure spiritually as well. Same thing for Crawford. But one thing, and you guys know I'm already pulling for Crawford. You right that. Well, Crawford, one of the biggest things that everyone's been saying that Crawford's just going to, Spence is going to walk him down and just slowly chop that tree down, things like that, and go fish, whatever, right? But it's kind of funny. I'm always almost believing that because Spence is looking very great. I mean, not that he's never missed weight or anything like that, but he's looking real great. But at the same time, on the flip side, Crawford's actually a smaller man, been at 147 for less time, but the fact that he's already grown into the division, as we feel well know. And once again, I don't need to discuss the quality of the competition. The argument's out there, will forever be out there, but now we're at this final to where that point can finally be settled. With that said, Crawford is a smaller man, but he's strong, as you said, Jay. He's country strong, and he's shown that whenever he needs to do that. That's not his game, but he has finesse, agility, athleticism, things like that. And even on that regard, he's been consistently called an athletic fighter. But the dude can fight. He doesn't rely on his athleticism. He doesn't. He can fight. So that being athletic is just simply one quality of who Crawford is. We know Spence, great fighter. Him tired in that really sense like that. Always solid, always in position. I mean, at this point now, all we have to do is wait for next Saturday for the fight because these guys do so much well and so much great in their own respects in that regard. Just let's fight.
Yeah, for sure. Now, going off of what these like a lot of these punch tests goes, going from I don't really view the whole thing with Terence Crawford's fight against David Evangeline, but I'll kind of go through what his fight was against Kell Brook, and in that particular fight, they kind of pinpointed like what was going on in those first couple of rounds. And the thing with Brook was that he was landing fairly well. He had the higher percentage in those first couple of rounds. But the thing with what he was doing was that he was being as active as Crawford was, or at least try to initiate and then be the counter to the counter. So what like a boxing academic said, and Zoe kind of like touched on this as well, is that Terence Crawford usually like builds off of the counter. So what Kell Brook did initially, off of it was he, countered off the counter. So he initiated the action with the jab, then Crawford came back at him, and then Brook came back to him. So it was like a 1-1-1-1 basically for those first couple of rounds. And so, the thing with Brook is he does have a very good jab as far as like when he tries to be active with it and try to be accurate with it. And so that was kind of like what got him his success for those first couple of rounds. But the thing about it was then, Crawford had switched it up. And once he had switched stances, then you really didn't see that much success from the jab coming off of Kell Brook. And like even like it showed like from the CompuBox stats that he didn't land one jab after Crawford came out of the third round. Pretty much he came out the third round and switching stances. So that kind of once he went in with that southpaw stance, then you really didn't see Brook kind of like make that adjustment on there. And I feel like that was the same thing with Sean Porter. Like Sean Porter was getting caught a number of times, once Terence Crawford switched stances there. But that's, coming off of, them being primarily from the orthodox stance. Now here, you're going to have Errol Spence, of course, being there in the southpaw stance. So we'll be interested to see how Terence Crawford like opens up this particular fight. If he's going to, be there southpaw versus southpaw, or do southpaw versus orthodox. And, for me, when it's a southpaw versus orthodox, the only thing that I really look at is where the fighter's lead foot is. Whoever has the stance where their lead foot is on the outside, to where they either, get the most out of that punch, where they're able to get in and out of the pocket. And if they're active and accurate while they're doing that, then, they'll be able to see if they have a little bit more of an advantage there, when that does happen. And, for me with Crawford, a lot of people talk about his athleticism and things like that. I think it's more of, with him being able to switch stances, that kind of, changes the game up as far as like what it means for him to have that type of, what they say defense, you know what I'm saying? Where, some fighters are able to be, pretty, accurate, or a little bit more accurate when he switches stances or not. But that's the thing there that, I'm looking at. For the Crawford Porter fight, it was Porter that was like very active around that fifth round or so. And, with him kind of like being able to, or Crawford being able to work through that fifth round, that kind of like, had him be able to be, kind of like take over after, like I would say like round 7 or 8, even though, they were saying like what was happening before round 10, you kind of seen that he was still, being able to land those shots, from that southpaw stance that Sean Porter couldn't really get over. But my thing is like, how are you going to be able to switch stances, and how would that work against someone that's a natural southpaw that, kind of like, comes forward, but he constantly moves his feet. He moves his feet, whether it's forward, backward, side to side, things like that. He's kind of moving. And people kind of like talk about the head movement of Errol Spence, and his trainer Derek James kind of explained it. It's not really what he does with his head movement; it's his foot movement, because he's constantly moving his feet. So you can move your head side to side, but if you still keep moving your feet, you're still not going to be in the same spot. So unless if you moving, you can move your head side to side, but if you're stationary, one thing you could do is you could punch to the body or punch down like you're punching to the body, and if your opponent ducks down, instead of landing to the body, it's going to land to the head. So if you keep moving, then you're not having that stationary target. And so that's what Coach Derek James kind of explained to somebody, a few days back about, Spence's supposed lack of head movement there. So that is going to be another key factor in this particular bout. And the other thing too, yes, you do have two high-profile fighters in there, but you also do have two high-profile trainers, as I mentioned, Derek James and also Brian Bomac McIntyre there. So I know that Bomac was over in Oklahoma yesterday for the Keyshawn Davis fight, but he's going to be right back out there to Las Vegas to focus on this bout here coming up on Saturday. And I feel like both of these trainers are really going to have their works cut up for them, because these are two fighters at a high level, very high level, whether it's from amateurs on up, decorated amateur careers, decorated professional careers. And like I said, I can't wait for this thing here. Anyone else got a little bit more here to add on real quick?
Hey, real quick, just as a great point, what you made about Spence being a softball, but because Spence face another, in a sense, natural softball. Crawford he fights both ways as far as left hand, right hand. We know that, but he does both just as well as a natural softball. So that's a great point. And Spence facing another softball, we know that every time you do a softball fight, they often enjoy that advantage over a traditional fighter in that regard. So now when Crawford comes out as a softball, from that point, that in a sense takes away that sense of advantage that Spence normally has over someone that fights in a traditional stance. So that's going to be interesting to see how he attacks that, things like that. Because we know, like you just pointed out, softball versus traditional, the main thing is the feet placement regard. Who get the outside foot placed for their advantage, not to get your foot stepped on. That often happens when you fight softball versus traditional. So I'm definitely anticipating Crawford coming out, fighting that's a softball to take that away from Spence, and see how he reacts to that and everything.
So one thing, this ain't gonna matter, but I just have to say it. When Crawford fought those guys and Porter and Kell Brook, they were not the same fighters that they were when they fought.
Speculation.
How is it speculation? And I just watched these fights.
Speculation.
Again, it ain't gonna matter in this fight, but I just want to point out that they were not the same fighters when they fought Terence Crawford. But it ain't gonna matter when they fight each other, though.
They were not washed up. They were not washed up. No,
I'm not saying they were washed up, but I'm saying that So the Sean Porter was not the same Sean Porter that was willing to take the risk that he was willing to take in the Spence fight, and he was sort of subservient in the fight to Crawford. Even him saying himself, like the way that he was like showing so much deference to Crawford. It was just like seeing him fight Spence and how he was trying to get at Spence and wasn't showing Spence no sort of courtesy, and how he was just being so nice to Crawford. He was not the same fighter. Physically, we know Kell Brook wasn't the same fighter, but it's not gonna matter in this fight. But I just have to point that out.
Well, in reference to Kell Brook and how he handled his career after his bout against Errol Spence. Of course, that was supposed to be a mandatory defense of that IBF welterweight championship. He was coming off of his fight with Gennady Golovkin.
And getting stabbed.
Well, that was like around 160, and then after having that bout against Errol Spence Jr., his next few bouts were above 147 pounds before he went up against Terence Crawford, one, and then two. I think at that particular point, he wasn't with his lead trainer at the time. Also, like his lead trainer was able to travel there at that point. So some people could say that those were a couple of factors there in reference to how Brooke approached that fight with Terence Crawford, but also with Sean Porter. Sean Porter, after losing that WBC, belt to Errol Spence, he only had one fight before facing Terence Crawford, and that was unanimous decision win against Sebastian Formella. So a number of people kind of bring that up in reference to those comparisons with those two common.
Listen, the Kell Brooks one, the Terence Crawford win over Kell Brook, I don't even bring that up because who gives a fuck? You feel me? Kell Brook was dead. You feel me? I don't give a fuck. The Sean Porter shit's where I have my pushback, just because I'm a follower of the Porter Way podcast. I watch it every week, and then I just know the way the lead up to the much to that, their energy towards Terence Crawford let me know what y'all saying it's cap. You feel me? Because his energy leading towards that fight on his podcast every day is hundreds of hours of this shit. And this is all this nigga was saying. Oh, he could beat him. It's gonna be an 8-4. All that shit. That's all him and his people was saying before this shit. His dad was talking shit. He didn't want the fight. We don't want to hear that. He just lost. And then even then, the interview he had when he was explaining, he said, "Yo, it's certain things my dad wanted me to do that I didn't do. Like when my dad tell me, oh, go swim this extra lap. I look at my dad like, nigga, I'm 30-something years old. I'm this part of my career. Nobody does this anymore. You feel me? That's what he was talking about. That's the extra stuff he was talking about. He said shit that he doesn't need to do at this age. You feel me? That's the shit he's talking about. He's not talking about some extra. He just was laying on the couch for bud. You feel me?
So,
if that was the case, why did he go after the fight so hard?
So Zoe, the only thing I would say is that you might have been watching the show then, but you obviously ain't been watching the show recently, because he has recently said himself that he said about himself that he was not the same fighter. He recently said that about himself. And if you go, I just saw the fight earlier yesterday or today. His mental was not the same. He was showing so much deference to this guy.
The comment I just made, the comment I said he made, what I was talking about when he said he told his dad he doesn't want to take those extra laps. That's a recent interview. That's a recent stuff he did on Porter podcast. What I noticed is all these weird YouTube posts, they took that comment and then they started saying it meant something else. But I clearly heard what he said. I don't know why people make it seem like he said something else. I mean, I know why, but
I mean, who would I be able to talk to in reference to this? What's his name? Sean. Sean. That's Fight Hot. That's one of the usually one of the co-hosts there for the Porter Way podcast. Like Sean Zettel is his name. But you also have with the co-host, the current co-host we have out there now, but like leading into the fight, you kind of like seen that where I feel like where Zoe's coming from, in that and this is what I was like trying to bring up to Sean Porter leading into that fight, was because this was like one of the other opportunities for him to win a world title there in the welterweight division. Like at that point, that would have been his last title.
JR,
that he
1 second.
Gerald,
1 second. His exact quote was, "This is the fight that solidifies my legacy as a Hall of Famer." That's his exact words.
Yeah, that would be one of those things that he was Sean Porter was talking about leading into the fight. But that goes into what I was saying. Like he had like I said, he fought. He won the WBC title. He had already been an IBF champion. Of course, losing to Kell Brook. But trying to get the IBF back, fighting Errol Spence, he fell short with that. He tried to win the WBA against Keith Thurman, he fell short with that. So the WBO was like the last piece where he could say, okay, this may be my last shot to become a world champion there in the welterweight division. And so going into that, saying that, you would kind of like see that, okay, maybe he was extra motivated there in that bout against Terence Crawford. But some people are like saying, that whole thing with that back and forth between him and his dad, and they talk about that type of stuff. Like you said about like running, swimming an extra lap or doing this, doing that. There were a couple of things about what was happening, in the ring as far as like sparring and getting prepared for Terence Crawford. That there was a particular notable southpaw that was in the camp there with Sean Porter. That some people said that maybe that particular fighter did get was a little bit more successful in those encounters there with Sean Porter than his father Light. But like I said, I mean those are two different type of fighters. Sean Porter is a different style fighter than Errol Spence is, and Terence Crawford is.
Hold up. Are you talking about him getting his ass whooped by Tank?
That is pretty much the supposed rumor that was there at that time in 2021.
Yeah, I was hearing that shit too. They said Tank was piecing him the fuck up in sparring and shit.
Yeah, but like I said, I mean Errol Spence and Terence Crawford are two different type of fighters there, and that's the thing here that we're looking forward to, and it's just mainly the intangibles that come out of both fighters. I mean, yeah, Errol Spence, has this particular style or whatever it is, but he, like I said, he has that, background, the amateur background, being in the Olympics. Of course, what happened in the gyms and the sparring sessions over there in Las Vegas, Nevada, and also, kind of some people bring up, his bout against Mikey Garcia too. But I don't know if that's going to be much of a thing here against Terence Crawford. I think it's more about what he's going to be able to assert against Terence Crawford early. As a boxing academic has said, it's really going to come down to what Errol Spence is able to do early. And then also, even with what you said, Zoe, is how Terence Crawford is going to be able to react to that. And I feel like that's going to be a really, really, it's going to make for a really, really exciting bout, for, as I say, as long as it lasts. Now,
wait, JL, before you continue.
Go ahead, real quick. Go ahead, Zoe.
JL, before you continue, this is our long-term prediction. Next week, Bud beats Spence, right? Then they fight again before the end of the year at 154 for a vacant title, right? Then and for Bud's last fight for his career, 164 catch weight versus Charlo for the undisputed title, and then he retires.
Well, you pretty much like made two predictions as far as like the fight goes, and one with that type of plan. One, you're picking Crawford to defeat Spence on July 29th, but not only that, you're predicting Jermell Charlo to defeat Santos Alvarez Barragan.
That guy's so washed. He is so fucking washed, bro.
Well, hey, go ahead with that.
He is fucking washed, man. Just look at him. Like the Bevo, I knew he was gonna lose the Bevo. I don't think that had nothing to do with him being washed. It's just a style matchup. I knew he was gonna lose the Bevo. It was whether or not the judges agreed with me. You feel me? So I knew that was gonna happen. But the Golovkin fight, the Ryder fight, that's a wash fighter. That's a fighter who have 70 fights. That's somebody who been fighting since he was 16. It's over with, bro. If Charlo goes in there and he fights with that Juan Guzman influence and he's moving side to side boxing, it's gonna look very fucking ugly. And I'm not even a Charlo fan. I think them motherfuckers is overrated, both of them. But I think he's gonna dance around fucking him. He about to 10. He gonna 10 to him. So if he 10 to him in Vegas terms and Canelo terms, that's probably like 116, 112 in Vegas terms. You feel me?
Well, the thing is, as far as like what you're saying with Jermell Charlo and Juan Guzman, I think Juan Guzman was a definite factor in Charlo's bout in his rematch against Brian Carlos Castaño. I think he was a huge factor in that particular rematch and how he was able to be able to like take over that particular fight that happened in Carson, California last year. So I mean, and like I said, you're not. I'll tell you this: you're definitely not alone in that particular prediction in reference to Jermell Charlo and Canelo Alvarez there. But now the plan for that was if Jermell wins, then Canelo may end up having a rematch clause for that. But we'll see how that goes. But back to the thing there with Spence and Crawford. As wanted to get this in here with like 45 minutes or whatever it is. For me, like I said, I'm looking to see how Spence goes at Terence Crawford in the early rounds. He has been, one of the more assertive fighters when it comes to the jab, and I think that kind of goes into what Coach Derek James has as far as like his fighters go, is that he has them build off of the jab, and then everything comes off of that. So as long as that is, particularly successful, then you will see more elements of Spence's game come off of that. But the thing with Crawford is, and this kind of like goes into the previous opponents that Spence has had. Even with the jab that he's been able to throw and land on his opponents, he's been able to have that advantage to where, like I said, even if he like moves with his feet, he could still lean back a little bit because he has a reach advantage. So when his opponent reaches back and tries to hit him,
who has the reach advantage?
No, I'm talking about his previous opponents.
Okay.
That's what I'm talking about. So that's what he was able to do with the number of his previous opponents, like Danny Garcia, with Sean Porter when they were like at a distance, not when they were up close. But with Terence Crawford, he's not going to be able to have that because Terence Crawford, has from a reach perspective, it's a little bit longer than Errol Spence. So now it's basically, is he going to go in there with the either the same type of thing that Kell Brook did in those early rounds where Brook would throw a jab, Crawford would throw something back, and then Brook would throw something back to him, So is Spence going to do that? And also, how is he going to, utilize his offhand, or like if he's going to, throw either lead lefts or right hook, how is that going to be able to land on Terence Crawford? Now, the thing with Terence Crawford, too, is that a number of people feel like he isn't necessarily a, high-level defensive fighter, but it's more about him, being that guy that will be a counterpuncher, in this particular sense. Now, is he going to be able to afford to do that against someone like Errol Spence? I don't know. So you might see a different element coming off of Terence Crawford in this particular fight. But if not, then I feel like, or I'm leaning towards what I've been saying for months, and that is that I feel like Spence is going to be able to eventually break him down and be able to. I wouldn't necessarily say if there's going to be a knockdown scored, but I feel like it's going to almost be similar to what Spence did with Yordenis Ugas in the point where his opponent is not able to continue. So I feel like it's going to be another TKO win for Errol Spence in the 10th round. So I've been saying it for a while. Spence TKO 10. Now, the odds, I know that from opening that Crawford was the opening favorite. I think it was like around 2 something or whatever it was. But in some books now it's closed almost to where it's like almost even. So that, man, I'm gonna see if I could catch those odds. Like I said, that thing with what they say with the bet and stuff, that's for entertainment purposes only, or whatever they talk about, right? Let's see they got. Oh, that's scorecards though. Plus 180 to plus 185. Yeah, Yeah, that's a different thing there. Let me see here. This is like July 10th too. So
Yeah, but JR, man, I really think after round 8, it's gonna be like it's gonna, the scorecards won't reflect it that it's gonna be close if it does go to decision. But after round 8, it's gonna be a style fest, man. It's gonna be a style fest, man. Once he takes away his jab, once he
Oh,
takes
what?
away his a
A
style
style what?
fest, a style fest, like it's gonna be a party, man.
Oh, gotcha.
It's gonna be a party. It might, after round 8, it might, if you close your eyes and squint, it might look like Floyd Mayweather versus Corrales. You feel me?
Do we know who the referee is and who the judges are going to be? Because as you know, here judges has always been a factor in fights, especially here lately. Would be for a good decision or bad decision, things like that. So
I haven't like
Think
seen
about
that. I haven't seen that yet. Usually I think that doesn't happen until around like Tuesday or Wednesday when they release that. Um, Jeez, what is this thing here, man?
But that's a good point because that'll tell what they'll favor.
Yeah, they could do that.
And
Let's see.
here's something I beg everybody to do. I beg the entire boxing world, please. I beg you guys. Whoever wins this fight, let's not over exaggerate. They're not a top 10 welterweight of all time. They're not a top 10 fighter of all time. Just enjoy the win. Let's not over exaggerate no matter who wins. Because I know you people like doing this shit lately.
Now, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, with the welterweight division, that's a glamour division. So you got so many fighters that came there over the years at welterweight to where hey, like you said, even regardless of who ends up getting this win, is that going to be enough to put them there within the top 10 as far as like all time for welterweights? But like going back to that betting line. Now I don't know where this specific thing has it there, but it says like it has Crawford get with a win probability of 54%. So
Damn.
it's really close. Like yeah, like 54 to 46. Yeah, that's the thing there, man. Uh, yeah, that is. Yeah, it's getting real close. I'm thinking that there's a number of folks that are putting in money for Errol Spence to, get the win here, man.
How
Picking
big of
Errol.
a problem you think Bud's reach is gonna be for Spence?
What? Hold on, repeat that.
How big of a problem do you think Bud's reach is gonna be for Spence?
Um, it may be an. I feel like it may be an issue if Crawford is able to land with the counter punch with good success early, because he's
Especially
not
like the way D-Box was able to do in the first 4 rounds.
yeah. Because he's like I've said, we've seen in his previous bouts, he usually isn't one that usually presses the action initially. He allows his opponent to be the lead as far as like when it comes to dancing or whatever it is. He's usually the lead in that. So his opponent is usually the lead in that. So I'm like, if Crawford is able to, like I said, be able to be successful with his counter punches early, then that will definitely be a factor there. Because, like I said, with Errol Spence, is that he usually is able to quote unquote get away with what he does initially with his jab and kind of like his follow through, because a number of his opponents don't have that reach advantage against Errol Spence. Terence Crawford does, but will he be able to utilize that if he first allows Errol Spence to be the initiator of action early in this bout?
I'm letting you guys know right now, man. You guys are gonna be very frustrated, man. There's gonna be a lot of movement, a lot of counter punching, a lot of clinching, a lot of referee saying break, a lot of it's gonna be watch. It's gonna be a real tactical fight, man.
well, yeah, even in that same regard,
I mean,
what do you got the first 4 rounds? Spence, Crawford knows it's a slow fighter, but going into this fight, he can't start slow. But at the same time, going against Spence, you can't just go in and just fire away. You can't do that. So, like you guys just said, it's definitely gonna be a chess match in the first 3-4 rounds. Definitely.
Oh well, hey, like you see there, Zoe and Terrell. If it's like that for those first 3 rounds, yeah, you're gonna be hearing this.
Yeah,
Boo!
you can't hear boo. You can't hear boo. It's about who's disciplined enough to not give a fuck about people saying boo.
Yeah, but they gonna be like that because hey, on the real, yo, them ticket prices, yo, I'm just like, God,
Yo, them ticket prices, yo, man.
oh, the choice is wild. I don't care, man. Listen, hey, I know they were able to be very successful in that Tank versus Ryan fight, but that was like a whole different dynamic. This is like this particular fight is like how fight fans look at Crawford Porter when it was announced. Like, okay, they were like, ooh, man, I can't wait for this fight. This is one that I want to, be able to go to and support. And you were able to kind of like support that with ticket prices, but that was given the arena that it was in too. But here they put this in the T-Mobile Arena, and I mean,
Bruh.
definitely had that capacity, increased capacity up there. But
If I bought a ticket to that fight, I wouldn't be able to talk to no prostitutes for 2 years, bro. That's gonna fuck my pockets up. Oh, that shit crazy.
Hey, yeah, that is not, them tickets is not for the faint of heart, but you will still have a good number of fight fans that'll be out there around the area, you know what I'm saying, and things like that. Shout out to Juicy. I think you got someone here, Zoe, that kind of like is rolling with you. He says, respect the Spence and his fans, but nothing stopping Bud from scoring the TK.
All right, Juice. Hey, yo, JR, how much you think is doing on pay-per-view? Because World Week Radio talk about
Yeah.
600,000 is generous, nigga. So how much you think? I'm saying,
No. I mean,
I'm
if you were able to catch me on there on this show, the previous week or whatever it is, like I said, listen, I feel like it's going to be above what he put, as his list there around like 200 to 250. I was thinking it would be at minimum 350,000, right? But
yeah.
I'm like I've been, from that past week or previous week, I've been pushing to say, hey, look, this is the fight that y'all say that y'all been waiting for all these years. All right, it's time to put that money up. So I feel like they're going to put that money up. So you probably will see, I would say around over 350, but I'm hoping for at least 500,000.
That's a flop to me.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, but that's because, of course, of the total purse, right? But yeah, with that being said, you know how many pay-per-view buys they would pretty much need in order to try to break even with that.
If this fight does 500,000, I don't know how that's considered a good look for boxing. That's a bullshit.
I feel what you're saying, but for me, like these days, you really don't see that type of number coming out of a number of these pay-per-view fights. You know what I'm saying? Like,
how much did Pacquiao Bruno do?
Oh, Pacquiao Bruno, what was that like around 360 something? I had to look at that, man. I would just have the joints up here. But
that fight makes sense to be a 350. If that fight does 350,000, I understand that. That makes sense. But I think him and Keith Thurman did 500, right?
Pacquiao Thurman?
Yeah.
Yeah, they did 500,000. That did 500,000. Pacquiao Bruno did 400,000.
If that shit did 500,000, if this shit, bro, that is embarrassing, bro. You're not gonna tell me fucking bullshit Golovkin versus fucking Triple G did fucking 900K and $1 million. This shit can't do. Nah, I'm not listening. I'm not. That's a bad
on the zone, yo. On the zone at that, right?
On the zone, bro. That's a bad look for. You can't flee. There's no way you gonna tell me fucking Caleb Plant versus Canelo on Showtime is gonna outperform. I'm not. That's a bad look. Nobody can convince me that's a good look. That means everything these racist crackers been saying about us all these years is true.
Hey, and like D Harm said, like with that Ryan Tank, yeah, they did around 1.2 to 1.4, man. Yeah, but given what that the overall the overall thing with that too was you kind of seen Ryan and Tank talk about that fight for about 2 years. But even with that, the reach that they have outside of the boxing ring kind of like gave that quote unquote super fight feel. So, when I was out there in April, like you weigh in, that type of thing, you saw like a whole bunch of people out there outside of T-Mobile Arena, ahead of that particular fight. In that fight, like sold out. Like
But I
this
feel
fight here, right? This fight here, like this is supposed to be the fight that fight fans have been basically waiting for how many years now? 5 years, whatever it is, right? So okay, you finally get it, and it's like, all right, you got it. You put your money up where put your money where your mouth is. Basically, is what they saying. You know what I'm saying?
because
And
maybe I live in bizarre. Maybe I live in an alternate universe because Spence versus Crawford, to me, I never looked at it as a fight for. I'm not us casual would love to watch the fight. You feel me? That's a fight for us casual. I always looked at it as a fight. When I go on social media and I see the Breakfast Club, when I see Lil Boosie, when I see fucking $1 million worth of game, these
right,
niggas is asking for this is not boxing. These are people outside the boxing world.
right,
Steven Jack, when I see this shit, so I'm
right.
confused to 500,000. How the fuck does that? What
Like
the
I feel you, and but that kind of like, but I also said this last week too. I said maybe it could get there above that, given the views that you've seen on the two all access episodes for these fighters and all of that. And like you said, you've seen them $1 million worth of game. You've seen them on the Pivot podcast. You've seen them with pretty much on the Breakfast Club and that type of thing. But also, how social media views it. Like if you see a couple of groups there that are like outs that don't usually talk about boxing that much, if they mention the fight leading
Yeah.
in, then maybe you'll say, okay, yeah, you'll get more than that 500,000. I'll get to 600,000 plus and things like that. But like I said, I was still pushing like hell for people to say, hey, look, this is the fight. This is a super fight. This is the one that people were saying, okay, this is like Hagler Hearns of yesteryear. This is when Sugar Ray Leonard was fighting back in the days and all that type of stuff. Okay, this is it. This is what you got. Now let's see what you're gonna be able to do as far as like supporting it. And I'm like, okay, I want to see people support it just like that. I mean, not just going to the fight, but buying the pay-per-view or going to the bars or the theaters if they got to open the theaters, that type of joint. You know what I'm saying? Because you were talking about the whole thing with War Week, right? As far as like the overall support, one of the things it was like this could be a one and done. They're supposed to have like this is supposed to be first fight in a rematch. But if it ain't that successful, regardless of who wins, that could be one and done. And
That is, I'm not gonna lie. This shit does 500,000, dog. I feel like every other fucking all these young bucks that's all hyped up about fighting each other because they was gonna use this fight as a benchmark. I'd be like, man, fuck that.
well,
Man,
I don't even think it's going to be that. I think it's going to be if this ain't successful, then you may not get some of the other fights that people are looking forward to as far as like quote unquote super fights. Outside of maybe one or two, and it involves one particular fighter. You know what I'm saying? Oh no, I got to do much more than this tip. I'm looking at the live chat tip Bayless. Nah, I got to do more than 250,000, buddy. Got to do way more than that.
250,000, bro. You're the devil.
Like what's that on? I mean, what is that around like 40K? I don't know, man. I mean, 40 million basically. But
Dog, if this shit doesn't do 1 million buys, boxing is dead. By boxing is dead, I mean African American boxing. You're not gonna tell me all we good for is fucking 500K. Caleb Plant, white trash ass, did 800K with Canelo. Who the fuck knows who Caleb Plant is?
Like, well, the thing is though, right? With what he said, 250,000. At this point, that might be like a break even, but I like with as much stuff.
Nigga, Rolly Romero and Tank did that shit.
Yeah, that's the thing though. You can't.
No, bro.
You can't have that be as much as Rolly Romero would take. Actually, that did more than 250. That did more.
Listen. It can't do less than Pacquiao versus. It can't do less than fucking Pacquiao versus Thurman. So 600K is a flop. It can't do less than that. It can't do less than Caleb Plant versus fucking Canelo, which is 800K. It can't do less than that. It has to do 900K or better, or else boxing is dead. Because you can't. How the fuck does that make sense?
Hey, like, but like D-Arm said, it's like that's Canelo. Like the thing with his fan base, they pretty much have like a consistent. They have a consistent buy rate. You know what I'm saying?
Nah, it's not no because Canelo nothing, because man, what was Canelo's numbers with fucking with Bivol and John Ryder? There wasn't that shit.
Well, the John Ryder thing, I haven't seen it really posted like that. Bivol was over 500K.
And how the fuck Caleb Plant do more than Bivol? Caleb Plant's not a star, nigga. What the fuck?
Well, the thing of one, it was a different platform. With Showtime. Showtime has much more of a reach than DAZN does, as one. And then two, given the magnitude of that fight at that time, like it was for undisputed super middleweight. So, hey.
Nigga, this is for undisputed and it's on Showtime and it's with two niggas that's actually good.
Yeah, it's supposed to be two guys where you feel like it is a 50-50 fight. And as I've kind of like explained, with the odds, it's getting close to being a 50-50 fight. So yeah. They gotta, I feel you on the tip of like, yo, this thing gotta be like around that.
Isn't there a UFC event that same night?
Yeah, I think they do have a UFC event or something.
Nigga, if that UFC event does 300K and we do like 300, boxing is fucking dead. You hear me? It's dead.
Well, consider the fact that we're in a new pay-per-view era where we'll have people out here generating these high pay-per-view numbers outside of Tank, who's also been invested in pay-per-view for quite some time. Spence, only a few fights pay-per-view. Crawford 1 or 2, we know that. So, and on top of that, despite like we said last week, they do have a big social media audience, but they don't have major crossover, which like a Jake Paul, for example. Even that we saw that Sports Illustrated, not that anybody cares about Sports Illustrated put Jake Paul on their cover.
Jake Paul on the cover, yep.
And that Crawford Spence about that. He said, "Well,
who buys that shit?"
He said, whatever, but most times I haven't bought a Sports Illustrated. But that kind of basically what I'm saying, the media goes for what's gonna move the needle, what's gonna get the clicks, things like that. And because these two guys are not at each other's throats like that publicly, then we don't have that controversy, things like that. So that's what's gonna suffer. But boxing's not dead. But once again, when a new pay-per-view era and things like that. So
boxing ain't dead. It's boxing gonna go on.
Listen,
that UFC in Salt Lake City is it's going to end up being around that same time, and that's Poirier Gaethje rematch. So yeah, they got that going on as well. There on July 29th.
Nigga, what did Wilder? Didn't Wilder and fucking Fury do 600K the third time?
That was around. Yeah, that was 600K.
This is man. Who the fuck knows who the Wilder?
Look at that back and forth though. You got, and it's just a term. You had good versus evil in that.
You need to put some respect on Wilder's name.
No, that country ass nigga.
You need to put some respect on Wilder's name.
That nigga suck.
Oh no, don't. Oh, here we go. We can't go.
Wilder suck. Wilder's the.
All right,
the only thing I can tell about Wilder is up until Fury became WBC champion, Wilder was the best WBC champion I ever seen since Stavern, whatever that means.
What?
Exactly.
See, here. Nah, I don't even want to go through that. Yo, this thing is like going through an hour, but yo, I broke down as much as I possibly could here with my guests here, the boxing academic, brother Zoe, Terrell. Shout out to the live chat there, Tip Bayless, D Harm in the building. We also had Juice in the building and Bruce Gaslight Tendencies that was able to watch live, and other folks here that was able to join in. Hopefully y'all like the preview, and looking forward to what's coming up July 29th here with that main event that is coming up, man, for the
Hold
undisputed
up.
welterweight championship. Yo, what's happening though?
JR, you know there's a fight on the 25th, right?
Yeah, but the thing is, on the midweek report, that is when I did the breakdown of the fight between Stephen Fulton and Naoya Inoue. So for folks that missed it live, you could go on the Boxing Source YouTube channel to
Who you
check out
picking?
that preview. Who am I taking?
Yeah.
Oh shoot. Oh man, I'm rooting for Fulton. But the thing is, I just don't know like how the particular ring is going to be like in this fight. I think that's going to be a real factor. And the thing that I'm concerned about with Stephen Fulton is with Naoya Inoue is that if he's going to have a punch that Naoya Inoue is going to respect. If not, then he's going to be in some serious trouble.
I really believe, I don't think Fulton could win a boxing match. I think Fulton's path to victory is to in the inside, and that's the only way to victory, because I don't think boxing him is sustainable, because this guy hit too hard and he's too gifted as a counter puncher, and he's good at setting trap. I don't know why people think Inoue doesn't have those abilities, but he have all those abilities.
Yeah,
I'm not saying I don't say he does it better than Fulton, but his punching powers make it too much of a risk to try and do that with him. You feel me? He's too good at it. You feel me? The path to victory is to take it on the inside and impose your will and use your athleticism on the inside. He's not winning it no other way. He'll lose a fucking boxing match by decision against Inoue. He can lose. He can lose it.
For me, Inoue is probably the in the top 3 pound for pound best punches in the boxing game. I put him at number 2, behind Tank Davis. But as far as what he's able to do from,
You say he punched better than Wilder?
Currently, right now, yes. From a technical standpoint, yes. Okay, yes.
You disappointed me. I haven't watched him, but I look forward to Stephen Fulton exposing him for the culture, doing it for the culture. I look forward to Stephen Fulton doing it for the culture.
You said you haven't watched.
He gonna bring those belts back home.
Even though I haven't watched what's his name, so I don't know, much about him.
Shout out to my people, Three Kings Boxing, 2014. They told me, and then they told me the fighter watch out for, go watch anyway. 2014. I've been on this train since before he became mainstream. I've been on this wave for a long time. You feel me? So this is it'd be shocking. It's like people really don't know who this guy is. People really make it.
I mean, they should have had that opportunity to really push him when he was, co-promoted by Top Rank. But like I said, I mean, what do I have him at currently? Number 3 pound for pound. So it's hey, if folks ain't really haven't been familiar with him, by especially after 2019, the fight of the year with that first bout against Nonito Donaire, that was fight of the year, So
his run through the World Series of Boxing, though, motherfucker was even making out the first round. World class guys.
Payano and Rodriguez.
Yeah.
Man, I heard that man be putting the cast on his hand. That's what I heard.
Listen. Here's my thing. Here's my thing for the people who spreading that rumor. Fulton done fought in 4 different countries with 4 different type of different regulations for how you can wrap your hands. He done fought in America where they wrap your hands that way. Guess what the fuck the result was? The same fucking shit. You guys are dead terrified of this shit, so you guys are throwing shit on the game. And that's damn near embarrassing. You feel me? Because if you guys throwing shit on this game, you're making it look like he overrated and Fulton when that only hurts Fulton. You feel me?
Man, I'm
Like,
looking forward to Fulton exposing him, even though I haven't watched him.
But doesn't that make you? But honestly, doesn't that make you sound like a casual to say something like that? I never seen this guy.
I admit that I haven't watched him, but I'm telling you, I want Fulton to do it for the culture.
Hey Zoe, actually, you kind of and I know you've been on a couple of times with MDO too. MDO has had that type of sentiment with Naoya anyway as he was coming up in the divisions, especially when he kind of like bypassed one particular division that had Chocolatito, that had what was it?
Did he bypass it or did he bypass it? He had a belt with them. He just didn't get the fights. Right? He was at 115. He had the WBO title. He just didn't get the fights with them.
So I mean, you have a few people that have like kind of criticized Naoya anyway on that front, and then also the other front about him facing certain style of fighters. So this is one where he has that particular opportunity to face a fighter of the style of Stephen Fulton. So that's going to be something there to definitely watch out for as well. But like I said, man, what was it, like 10:37 Eastern time? Wanted to try to close this out at 10, but that's all right though. I'm very thankful for y'all three to join in on this conversation here. And like I said, we're looking forward to what's going to be going down July 29th. And yes, look forward to what's coming up on July 25th. On ESPN Plus, because these 2 fights, like I said, they're going to involve, at least for me, 4 of the top 6 pound-for-pound fighters on the Boxing Source pound-for-pound list.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely look forward to those 2 great fights. And like I said, if y'all missed it, or earlier, I think it was Thursday, y'all could check out the preview that I had on this particular YouTube channel. And also, for those that are just jumping in here live now, if y'all can, y'all could go back to, where we broke down this Spence versus Crawford fight. And y'all look forward to this super fight coming up July 29th in Las Vegas, Nevada, T-Mobile Arena. But, with that being said, that's the end of this particular episode of the Boxing Source radio show. Here, like I said, according to rumors, the longest running boxing podcast that's in existence, been established since May of 2015 So there's that. And like I said, at the end of every show, folks, the point of boxing is to hit and not get hit, not to stand and trade. On that note, folks, I'm out. Have a good evening, everybody.